Thanks so much, Isabella. That was wonderful. Good morning. My name is Nikki Willard, and I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington's hybrid, multi-platform Sunday service. We are streaming live from our sanctuary in Huntington and virtually on Zoom and Facebook. I welcome you all this morning, those who are here in our sanctuary, as well as those joining virtually. For those of you joining us on Zoom, please feel free to use the chat box to say hello to our fellow Zoomers, or is it Zoombies? On behalf of the fellowship, I would like to extend a special welcome to visitors joining us for the first time here in person or virtually, as well as any newcomers who are returning. If you would like to learn more about us, feel free to speak with someone after the service if you are here, or let us know in the chat on Zoom, or email us at office@uufh.org. Know that whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. I have a few announcements. I'd like to begin by noting that the Muslim holy month of Ramadan officially began yesterday, April 2nd. Ramadan marks the time when God is believed to have revealed the first passages of the Quran, the Islamic holy book, to the Prophet Muhammad. And because Islam follows the lunar calendar, Ramadan starts and ends on a different day every year. During the entire month, many of the world's more than 1 billion Muslims will be fasting from sunrise to sunset. Ramadan Mubarak, blessed Ramadan to all our Muslim friends who observe this holy month. In the surest sign that life is potentially returning to normal, coffee hour is back today. It will be in the social hall, which will be mask optional, that space. And so another sign of normalcy is that volunteers are needed to make the coffee and clean up. The sign-up sheet is near the kitchen today. Please sign up to take a turn. Also, 2 fundraisers are back. The Auction Gala 2022 is April 30th, both in person and online, and it's time to enter what you want to offer. All you need to know is on our website. Just click on the button on the home page. If you're not familiar with the auction, anyone here on the committee can chat with you. I did see Sue McGovern here, and anybody else, if you can make yourselves known to anybody who might have some questions. Another fundraiser is our annual plant sale. Information about that is also on our site, and there will be a table set up. I don't know if it's in the social hall or the gallery today after the service, and you can start placing orders. If you've been attending fellowship services and or online events and you feel you're ready to take the next step and make a commitment to official membership, please be in touch with the UUFH Connections by April 13th. They are planning a membership book signing for later in April and would love to include you if the time is right for you. There will be an online Seder celebration on April 16th, co-hosted by the UUFH and the Shelter Rock congregation. Watch the service online, then enjoy your Passover Seder dinner at home with family and loved ones. All are welcome to attend. Mark your calendars for the first annual Family Pride Picnic in Huntington. It's a ways off, to be held on June 26th from 1 to 4 at Mill Dam Park. Many thanks to our members Eric and Jim Rubin Perez, who have been working tirelessly with the town of Huntington, and also to our Board of Trustees for approving a $1,500 sponsorship, all of that making this event a reality. For additional news and information, please look in our weekly e-newsletter, The Flash, for many other announcements, or the News and Announcements section of our website, uufh.org. If you don't get the newsletter, it's easy to sign up through the link on the home page. We're a busy congregation, so you'll want to read it each week. If you get Newsday, be sure to check out the Ask the Experts column today. Our transitions minister, Reverend Deborah Hafner, is one of the contributing ministers. It's really good. Check it out. I'm going to take a moment now to introduce our new office administrator, Sandra Yenz. Sandra, she's going to come up here, is excited to be back at the... She is excited to be back at the UUFH after growing up here. Her family moved to Long Island in 1980, and her father, Dave, who works the sound for our services, has been a member ever since. Sandra is well qualified for our office administrator position, having had many volunteer roles, the last one being for a nursery school at the Methodist Church in Huntington. Sandra has an MBA and a background in corporate offices, which is helping her jump right into her role here. She's married to Ed Beltran, who works in web development, and they have a 6-year-old daughter, Emily Beltran. Please take a moment to welcome Sandra when you can. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest minister this morning, Reverend Ben Borton. Reverend Borton served as minister of First UU Congregation in Duluth, Minnesota for 8 years, and the UU Church of Staten Island for 21 years. A graduate of the University of California and Starr King School of Religious Leadership, he also served 12 years as member coordinator at the UU congregation at Shelter Rock. He taught Religions of the World at St. John's University for 2 terms, and for 2 terms has served as president of the UU United Nations office. He's been a busy guy. He still is. Currently, he is a chaplain at Zucker Hillside Hospital in Queens, New York. He resides in Port Washington with his wife, Andrea Starr. And now, I invite you to settle into your bodies and quiet your minds as we breathe deeply together and settle into our time of worship. Please join me in saying our mission statement. The words are on the screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. Please join me here and at home in singing our affirmation, Common Grounds. The words will be on the screen.
The readings this morning are all by Langston Hughes, including this reading for the chalice lighting, In Time of Silver Rain, which we may have a little bit later on today. In time of silver rain, the earth puts forth new life again. Green grasses grow, and flowers lift their heads, and over all the plain the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings to catch a rainbow cry, and trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy beneath the sky. When spring and life are new. And now there will be a story for all ages on the video.
That is My Dream by Langston Hughes and Daniel Mayares. I hope that you enjoy this amazing story. To fling my arms wide in some place of the sun, to whirl and to dance, till the white day is done. Then rest at a cool evening beneath a tall tree, while night comes on gently, dark like me. That is my dream, to fling my arms wide in the face of the sun, dance, whirl, whirl, till the quick day is done. Rest at pale evening, a tall, slim tree, night coming tenderly. Black like me.
Now it is time to sing our children and their teachers off to their religious education classes by singing Go Now in Peace. And now for more singing. I invite us all to sing Spirit of Life. Following the song, we will enter into a time of silence. As you participate here in the sanctuary and at home, it's not about the perfection of silence, but the intention. Please join me now in singing Spirit of Life. This is the time in our service when we hold all those tender personal concerns which are close to our hearts today. I invite those of you here in the sanctuary to say aloud the names you would like to lift up into the care of this community, and I will repeat them so that those at home can hear. Becky. Ruth Ann. Say that one more time. Michal. Louisa. Karen. Mary. Kathy. Tom. People of Ukraine. Here in the chat, I have Diane, Audra, Christine, John. Anybody else on Zoom can enter in the chat. Gary and Selena, JF, may they be well. May they feel the love that surrounds them. Let us take a moment to give thanks for the blessings emerging even now, for women and girls who are leading us forward and showing us what peaceful empowerment looks like. We give thanks. For journalists and scientists, attorneys and public servants, Supreme Court nominees, and so many others who are offering truth and wisdom in a time of need, we give thanks. For refugees from Ukraine, for immigrants at our border, for ordinary people, including you and me, who are rising to the occasion and bringing the best that is in us as best we can, we give thanks. We close with a few more breaths in silence. May it be so. Amen. Our split plate charity for this month is New York UU Justice, NYUUJ, or NUDGE as it is known, is our New York statewide UU legislative and justice action organization. The mission of NUDGE is building justice and power in New York. They seek to accomplish this by connecting Unitarian Universalists with one another and with partners who share our values, learning from those most engaged in the struggle for justice and following their lead, and activating collective power to advocate for a just New York. As the UU Social Justice, as a fellowship social justice co-chair, I just want to add, I don't have to tell you that our democracy is under threat. More and more states are taking away many rights and freedoms, from voter rights to abortion rights to LGBTQ plus rights, especially transgender rights, and the rights of those who are incarcerated. And New York has its own issues. Many of us are searching for effective ways to say, no way. But as the NYUUJ website says, the power we have as individuals and even as individual congregations, while significant, does not have the political power we can have when we come together in cooperative state action. Through this New York State Advocacy Network, we can have a stronger voice in these matters. Currently, the issues NUDGE is working on include climate, housing, criminal justice reform, and death with dignity. Please go to their website, nuuj.org, for more detailed information on these issues. You can send a check to the office or donate on our website by using Vanco, our secure online donation service, as seen on your screen. You can also donate through Vanco Mobile, a mobile app for making donations on your smartphone. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Nikki, for that kind introduction. And thanks to Jim Monnier for guiding this rather unconventional service together. He had a lot of hoops to jump, and he did so beautifully and with great competence and congeniality. And my heartfelt thanks to Isabella Johnson, who is rolling with this service and and is a very important part of it. Music is always an important part of a service of worship, but it certainly is in this case. I also wish to say that I'm very delighted and honored to be with you this morning. I was on Zoom with this congregation a year, or was it 2 years ago? Short-term memory is bad enough, but with a pandemic, forget about it. But I'm very, very delighted to be back. I have had friendly rapport with members over the years, the late Sally Lineweaver, Richard Kopp, who I know has moved on to Arizona with his wife, who I met at the United Nations office board, and someone who has not moved too far away, Andrea and my great friend, Kathy Zillman, who is here this morning, has been such a leader in this congregation. Again, delighted to be with you. You know, among the matters that needed to be meticulously attended to for this service was the miking for both the Zoom congregation and the live one. And again, Jim and Dave handled that beautifully. But I'm reminded of the Episcopal Church, in which the microphone might have been a little bit more problematic. And the Episcopal liturgy, as you may know, involves the officiant saying, "The Lord be with you," and the congregation responds, "And also with you." So the priest was tapping up at the pulpit and said, "I think there is something wrong with this microphone." And the congregation answered, "And also with you." Nothing wrong with this one, though. I've always taken to a statement made by the late Reverend John Haynes Holmes, who was Unitarian minister in New York City in the early 1900s, published author, who got in trouble with the Unitarian Association over his opposition to our country's involvement in World War I. Of course, we're daily and hourly apprised of the horrors of war in Ukraine, and I certainly join in lighting a candle and offering support for the people of that great country. He was in so much trouble that John Haynes Holmes was then of the mind to leave the denomination. The war was called by Hemingway a colossal mismanaged butchery. But something else that John Haynes Holmes said, and the quotation I had on my bulletin board for a long time, was the following: "When I say the word God, it is poetry and not theology. Nothing that any theologian has written about God has helped me much. But everything the poets have written about flowers and birds and skies and seas and saviors of the human race and God has at one time or another reached my soul. The theologians gather dust upon the shelves of my library, but the poets are stained with my fingers and blotted by my tears." Poetry, when it reaches us, conveys spirituality. And what is poetry? What oft is thought, but ne'er so well expressed, Alexander Pope said. And some of the most eloquent prose we can rightfully call poetic, whether it be Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and second inaugural speech, or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream or mountaintop speeches or orations. Poetry involves thought and ideas, but it is also feeling, rhythm, spirit. It's a middle ground between music and language. It might not be, it doesn't have to be strictly grammatical or rational, but it speaks to deeper human realities by being bumpy at times or metered at others. It can be intuitive or dreamlike. Langston Hughes was the Black Poet Laureate of the United States in the 20th century, and he commented that poetry connects us to the universe because the world and cosmos are characterized by rhythm, whether it be the turning of day into night and night into day, or the changing of the seasons, the tides going in and out, the pumping of the human heart. And Langston Hughes was brought up, as Jim Monnier pointed out to me 2 weeks ago, speaking of Supreme Court nominees, when Senator Cory Booker gave his powerful, impassioned testimonial to the achievements of Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, empathizing with her after her hours of bruising interrogation, often on matters not related to her competence and experience as a judge, on how hard it is still for an African American to get to the point that she has already reached. Senator Booker quoted Langston Hughes, who wrote in 1937, "Let America be America again, the land that has never been yet, and yet must be, the land where everyone is free. America never was America to me." The first time I ever heard of Langston Hughes was in my 8th grade English class. An excerpt of a poem that we will hear today, Mother to Son, was in our textbook of American literature, perhaps the only selection composed in that book by an African American. If that were the case, that would still be one more African American than was in my 8th grade class. The towns of Concord and Walnut Creek, California, where I grew up, suburbs of San Francisco, were de facto racially segregated, as they more or less still are, as of course is Long Island and much of the rest of the United States. I didn't read or think about Langston Hughes for a number of years after that, and now the more I learn about him, the more I admire him. Not only did he have an uncommon poetic gift, recognized by his predominantly white 8th grade class, who voted him class poet, he was, in my view, a seer. He saw not so much into the future as he did deeply into the present. He could capture a human reality with pulsating vividness. Listen to this description of a twilight scene on his train trip to Mexico en route to seeing his father. He was an adolescent when he wrote it. "It is sunset, and Mexico's great jagged mountains are wrapped in a purple veil about themselves. The same old peaks, bathed in yellow wine and honey, sit huddled now like Indians." He was 18 years old when he wrote those words. Langston Hughes was born in 1902 in Joplin, Missouri. Teddy Roosevelt was president at that time and had invited Booker T. Washington to the White House for dinner the year before, the first time an African American had been hosted by a president of the United States. The event caused tremendous condemnation in the press, especially throughout the South. Langston Hughes' own ancestry included Lewis Leary, who was killed at John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry, and a grandfather, his namesake, Charles Langston, who participated in the Underground Railroad, and had a brother, John Langston, who was the first Black American to hold elective office in this country as a result of a popular vote, that is, in the U.S. Congress. Langston Hughes' grandmother told young Langston about these heroic relatives, but at the same time, Langston Hughes did not feel any particular warmth from his grandmother, nor from his mother, certainly not from his father, who left when Langston was a few months old for Mexico, not to return. He grew up a motherless, fatherless, grandparentless child. He put it in his own autobiography, "My mother was present some of the time, and I hated my father. But what he did come to love were books, and in particular the Topeka Public Library. At a young age, he read Huckleberry Finn, Uncle Tom's Cabin, W.E.B. Du Bois' classic, The Souls of Black Folk. One afternoon, while he was dreamily reading, he heard boys outside the library building playing, and he felt a little guilty. Why am I inside? Why shouldn't I be getting friends and playing outside with them? And he developed himself in athletics. He excelled in high school in track, but he never lost his interest in literature, which he said speaks to us in beautiful words, whereas my home life was in monosyllables. There's another respect where I particularly identify with Langston Hughes, and you might also, and that's in the area of religion. Langston Hughes had an aunt who took him to a weekend Christian revival, the type where anybody who had not yet done so was to take a public testimonial that he or she believed in Jesus Christ our Lord, the concept of the rest of the group. And everybody did except one person. And all eyes were on young Langston Hughes. And everyone was encouraging him to do what would liberate him for the rest of eternity. And he did so. But that night he cried all night. And his aunt, who had taken him to this revival, said, "This is only natural. To feel the embrace of the Lord at first can be so shocking that you would react this way." That wasn't it at all. He felt he had misrepresented himself. And for the rest of his life, while revering Black spirituals, which he felt were the heart and soul of Black heritage, and interest in the rituals of religion, including Judaism, he flatly took aim at religious hypocrisy and even wrote a poem, "Goodbye, Christ," where he felt members were not actually following the teachings of the person they so claimed to revere. He began composing poetry at a very young age, and he also came to love jazz. He once called jazz the tom-tom joy and laughter of life, pain swallowed in a smile, and he particularly loved Duke Ellington. He said if he had a doorbell chime, it would be a Duke Ellington riff, and I think today he would want that as his ringtone on a cell phone. So it is fitting that Isabella be part of the poetry reading. He wanted to be called the jazz poet, and I follow humbly in his footsteps because he read poetry with a jazz accompaniment and wrote poetry in jazz nightclubs. The first poem that will be delivered is I've Known Rivers, and I should mention that he was mindful that rivers spawned human civilizations, whether they be the Nile, the Tigris-Euphrates, the Indus River in India, the Yangtze River, and he might have added the Virgin River in Zion Park in Utah, where Pueblo Native Americans developed 10,000 years ago. And Langston Hughes was aware of the ominous aspect of rivers. The Mississippi had been used to transport people to slavery, splitting families. And the Mississippi, the same river, was where Lincoln traveled when he first became deeply repulsed by human beings owning other human beings. Now the poem, I've Known Rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. And I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. Langston Hughes commanded respect from and developed friendships with white classmates in his early years and white people throughout his life. But he also, not unsurprisingly, let me say not surprisingly, ran into racial prejudice constantly. At the age of 7, he was not allowed to swim at the local YMCA or join the Boy Scouts. He loved attending movies as a child and was a fan of Charlie Chaplin in particular. And one day the woman at the box office told Langston, "Your people can't come in anymore." And she pointed to a sign, "No colored admitted." One of his school teachers took away some licorice from a child saying, You don't want to eat these. They'll make you black like Langston. Some people told their children not to play with him. When he was older in the city of Chicago, he was given a swollen jaw because ends are not allowed in this block. Langston Hughes did not have the sort of temperament that would lead him to a burst of anger, even when he was treated unjustly. But he did not capitulate either when he was victimized. When he was at a museum cafeteria, for example, here in New York, and a woman at the register was so furious that he was in line buying his lunch, she started punching her cash register keys until he had an astronomical bill. He refused to pay the excess, which caused her more rage. He didn't mirror her anger. He just didn't pay a penny more than he owed. The same kind of incident occurred at Columbia University, where he was admitted as an undergraduate. He had been assured not only of his enrollment, but of housing. But when he arrived at the Columbia campus in 1921, the housing office told him there were no more campus rooms available. He told them he had been promised housing. "You need to have proof," the representative answered. And so what comes out of Langston Hughes' pocket but a crumpled letter verifying lodging for that year at Columbia. Of 12 black students admitted to Columbia University that year, Langston Hughes was the only one admitted to the dormitories. He was resilient. When faced with racial hostility, when faced with hardship, he would bounce back. He would be turned down for 9 out of 10 jobs and take the 10th, including boarding a ship along the coast of Africa or working for Greek farmers in Staten Island. The next poem is one of the great pep talks that a parent can give a child, even though, as I say, ironically, he did not have a good relationship with either of his parents. Mother to Son is written in dialect, and I read it being faithful to the words with profound respect for the person who is speaking it, as Langston Hughes had. But he wanted to capture the language and the culture of the people around him who were African American. He felt this was terribly important for the sake of literature, for the sake of America. And now, Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps just 'cause you find it kind of hard. Don't you fall now, for I'm still going, honey. I'm still climbing. And life for me Ain't been no crystal stair. Langston Hughes did not enjoy Columbia University, dropped out after a year. But as you know, that campus is near Harlem, and for Langston Hughes, Harlem was a dream come true. Harlem was the community of the Harlem Renaissance, of which Langston Hughes came to be a leader. And he already had looked forward to it, but he was more than amply rewarded by novelists like Walter White and Jesse Fossé, by Fletcher Henderson and his orchestra, by Bill Bojangles Robinson, by others whom he came to know. Harlem's high-quality housing by the 1920s, between 125th and 145th Street, allowed, in James Weldon Johnson's words, African Americans to have better, cleaner, more modern, more airy, more sunny houses than they ever lived in before. As mentioned, Langston Hughes came to love jazz and blues, and in fact, some of his earliest writings are articles in the magazine Vanity Fair about blues and their history. But a particular favorite for Langston Hughes was Billie Holiday. And a favorite among favorites was her song, God Bless the Child. So I'm so pleased that for the next poem, the song for Billie Holiday, Isabella will accompany it with God Bless the Child, and that will also be the postlude for this service. What could purge my heart of the song and the sadness? What can purge my heart but the song of the sadness? What can purge my heart of the sadness of the song? Do not speak of sorrow with dust in her hair or bits of dust in eyes. A chance wind blows there. The sorrow that I speak of is dusted with despair. Voice of muted trumpet, cold brass in warm air, bitter television blurred by sound that shimmers. Where? Langston Hughes never married. He might have had what we could call a date here or there, including one in Paris and another in Uzbekistan, or maybe had what we sometimes call relationships. Some have speculated that he was gay. We have no evidence one way or the other. He kept his sexuality very private. What he did have throughout his life were friends. Friends in the literary world like Robinson Jeffers and Arthur Kessler, African American friends like Mary Bethany, who helped him get from Florida to New York since he and his friend and he had run out of money. Bethany, who was quite a leader in the black college network of this country. Generous white friends like Noel Sullivan of San Francisco and Carmel Valley, who offered him unlimited hospitality. And another friend when he was traveling the dusty deserts of South Asia, who didn't speak a word of English. And Langston Hughes did not know that friend's language, Pamir. They got along beautifully as roommates for several weeks. And known for his gracious, charming way, Sun Yat-sen also met with Langston Hughes, as did Ernest Hemingway. Or it could be the children in a classroom. Many classrooms were visited by Langston Hughes. And on one occasion, a little girl came up and gave him a snippet of her poem, and he thought this would be nice for her age, but it was exceptional. The little girl's name was Margaret Walker. He was great with the neighborhood children of Harlem, which came to be his home until his death. He wrote over 40 books, including novels, plays, nonfiction, the libretto to an opera, and of course, poetry. He was left-leaning in his sympathies, and when he visited the Soviet Union in the 1930s, he and his 22 African-American confreres were treated with red carpet hospitality. 1953, he was called before the Joe McCarthy Senate Permanent Committee, Subcommittee on Investigations, and he finessed the hearing beautifully. He knew about Rosa Parks not giving up her seat on the Montgomery, Alabama bus, and he deeply admired Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He died in 1967 at the age of 65, and I want to conclude with two poems that were responses to people he venerated. The first of these is entitled Harlem, and it's arguably the most famous poem Langston Hughes ever wrote. One of its lines inspired the title to a play, the play Raisin in the Sun. And it also is echoed in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. The first poem, Harlem, by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? The final poem was a deliberate answer to Walt Whitman, the Long Islander, whom Langston Hughes did revere all his life, and in particular to Whitman's poem, I Hear America Singing, and it's entitled I Too, and it has a resonance that's reflected in the more recent Me Too movement. I Too by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. We will now be extinguishing the chalice, and we will do so to a final set of words by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow.
I just want to thank Reverend Borton and Isabella for just such a wonderful service today. That was really great. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Debbie Hosevar, whose skills behind the scenes with her expertise on Zoom are absolutely amazing. There will now be a coffee hour in the social hall, and for those who are comfortable drinking without masks, although how else would you drink? And for those of you on Zoom and Facebook, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go now in peace.